Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Education, SOE, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Distance Education, MADE, First Year. MD 518 Educational Communication Technologies, Revised Block 3 Content Creation Tools. Unit 11, Communicating with Graphics.
11.0 Introduction. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Be it a graph, a drawing, a map, or a photograph, it is possible for us to pack a lot of information into it. We use the word graphics for any of these visual representations of information. You would have observed that books, newspapers, and magazines are increasingly using graphics to communicate. With the aid of computer software, graphics have evolved into a very powerful and sophisticated means of visual communication. Observe a graphic in a newspaper, say a bar chart or graph in the economics section, or a cartoon. Compare this with the cover of a glossy magazine. In what ways does this limit the ability to communicate? Make a collection of different graphics and analyze them. For what purposes would you use each kind of graphic? Are some types more suited for particular kinds of communication? Television and computer animation have combined to add yet another dimension to graphics motion. A simple graph, where the curve or the bar grows to depict an increase in the quantity, makes the visual representation more appealing. How does combining motion with graphics help enhance communication? Observe different motion graphics and analyze them. For what purposes would you prefer motion graphics? Graphics are used not only to communicate information, but also as decorative elements, borders, boxes, corners, to embellish the message, greeting or invitation cards, posters or notices, covers of books, web pages, or logos. You will find hundreds of examples of graphic elements in use. Lines and curves, colors, light and shade, lettering, font, type size, and highlighting are the different elements a graphic is made of, each element having a definite purpose in the communication. While there are no rules for what elements should be used in what combination for what effect, a general sense of aesthetic appeal, it is pleasing to the eye, will help you decide. Moreover, different people have preferences for different colors and different designs. If you observe traditional graphic forms, different cultures have different motives and designs. In this unit, we will examine graphics, analyze its use, learn to generate graphics using different computer software, and use them as a part of different types of communication. In the process, we will also learn about color and design. 11.1 Learning Outcomes. After working through this unit, you are expected to be able to times identify different types of graphics and graphic formats, times describe the principles of graphic design, times use graphic design tools to communicate concepts and ideas, and times use concept mapping tools. 11.2 Graphics in Instruction. Graphics, as we mentioned earlier, is a technique of visually representing information, where with the use of various graphic elements, the message is highlighted. It is expected to draw and hold the attention of the viewer. The message itself is represented in ways that modifies the perspective, links it with other popular events, images or styles, distorts particular aspects so as to highlight it and makes it funny, and so on. We also mentioned that graphics are used for decorative purposes. Most posters and banners have the purpose of advertising a message and use graphics to enhance communication. How are graphics used in instruction? How will its use be different? Let us examine two possible uses of graphics: 1 in printed materials like textbooks, 2 as a teaching aid, either as a projected slide or as a web page, say a part of an online learning package. In the following discussion, we will restrict ourselves to these two uses only. 1.2.1 Use of graphics in printed instructional materials. Traditionally, one would encounter only a few types of graphics in textbooks. One would find diagrams, say in a biology text, or pictorial representations of models, say in a chemistry or geometry text, maps, say in a geography text, graphs, say in algebra or physics texts, or flow charts. Occasionally, some authors may prefer a comic strip or a cartoon. Let us examine each of these types of graphics in order to understand their characteristics. Diagrams are generally a simplified version of the real thing. For instance, a diagram of, say, the circulatory system in the human body may only contain the heart connected to a few bunches of arteries and veins. Figure 11.1. Depending on the specific purpose of this graphic, details would be highlighted. For instance, if the purpose was to show the process of circulation, then perhaps the different sections of the heart would be shown in a cutaway of the heart. The graphic would be labeled. Again, depending on the age of the potential viewer or the depth to which the content is elaborated, the labels would be in simple English or loaded with jargon. Figure 11.1, a schematic diagram of the human circulatory system. Diagrams can range from very simple line drawings to very elaborate, colored three-dimensional drawings. Labeling may also range from simple to complex. The rule of thumb for a good diagram is the match between the specific purpose of the diagram, the level of the viewer, and the complexity of the subject matter. Compare the diagrams of a cell in a middle school science textbook and a textbook of physiology used by students of medicine. How are they different? Maps are a specialized form of graphic. Usually used to represent a geographical region, they can also be used to present a variety of information relating to that geographical region. For instance, you can have a map depicting roads connecting different places in a country or the religions practiced in different parts of that country, or the location of tourist attractions, or the crops grown in different parts of the country, or even the weather pattern across that country. The distinguishing characteristic of a map is that it is a scaled-down version of the real thing, the ground. What makes a map an effective graphical communication? If the map is a physical map of a region, it will depict the relative elevations, the differences in vegetation, water bodies, perhaps even the depths and the locations of many important places. Obviously, it would not be advisable to depict all the possible information on it. That would make it impossible to decipher, avoiding clutter or information overload. Use of color such that different features are distinguishable and clear coding, use of icons, color codes, symbols, etc., to facilitate easy retrieval of information are the hallmarks of a good map. Study a range of maps and check to what extent they meet these criteria. How could you have made it more effective? Graphs are also a specialized form of graphic, specifically used for making comparisons of quantities. Pie charts, XY graphs, bar charts, etc. are different forms of visual representation of relationships between the quantities being compared. Let us take the case of an XY graph, figure 11.2. This is a typical case of representing what happens to quantity y while x increases or decreases. For example, you could represent the change in speed of a vehicle with time. So you have time represented on the horizontal x-axis and the speed on the vertical y-axis. The jagged line on the graph permits us to read the speed at any given point in time. You also observe that both the x and the y-axis have a scale, which makes the readings exact. What are the characteristics of this graph that makes it effective as a graphic? A clear title or caption, indicating the purpose of this graph, the appropriateness of the scale, all data points fit into the scale, data points do not crowd, making it difficult to read, scale clearly marked, E. G, y-axis, 1 centimeter, is equal to 10 kilometers per hour, and legends and axis labels marked indicating what quantities are depicted. Flow charts are used to represent a process or an algorithm. Each of the steps are displayed in boxes, the process and the sequence indicated by arrows connecting these boxes. Represented this way, it helps the reader easily figure out the complete sequence of events and their relationships. Similar in function to a circuit diagram, it also helps in analyzing or managing a process. It can be of great help in troubleshooting, finding errors, and attributing reasons for them, like in the case of a faulty computer program. A particular kind of flow chart, called an organizational chart or organogram, is used to represent the hierarchical relationship between various offices or officers within an organization. Figure 11.3. What should the characteristics of a flow chart be? Obviously, the reader should be able to see all the steps clearly, identify their relationships, and identify the sequence of events. If there are different categories of steps or relationships, one may resort to color coding or using different types of boxes. 1.2.2 Appropriate use of graphics. Graphics, you would have observed, is an economical and visually enriching style of communication. But inappropriate use would distract or even lead to miscommunication. While using graphics, you could work with a few thumb rules. Remember, none of these are sacrosanct, but will aid effective communication. Point: identify the particular type of graphics suited to the purpose of communication. Point: select a style which clearly highlights the information. Point: size of the graphic should be proportionate to the importance of the information. Very small or very huge graphics may not serve your purpose. Point: titles, captions, labels, legends, icons, and other markers should be legible, suitably located, proportionately sized, and of an appropriate color and font. Point: use of decorative elements, colors, patterns, borders, shadows, or stylized fonts should be carefully selected to aid communication. Computer graphics software provides too many choices and very elaborate and purely cosmetic elements. These may not be very helpful for instruction. Discretion in use is very essential. 11.3 Graphics file formats. Nowadays, almost all of printing and video tasks are accomplished by computer software applications. While introducing you to the details of these software or their use is beyond the scope of this unit, it would certainly be helpful if you are familiar with the basics of computer graphics. Computers handle digital data. They can process numbers very rapidly, very reliably, and tirelessly. Computer scientists have succeeded in employing these capabilities to help computers process images. Again, we will not be able to describe these in detail, but we will try to give you an overview. The screen of a computer monitor or display unit displays the graphic to us. Imagine a large number of horizontal and vertical lines crossing each other, dividing the rectangular screen into a very large number of tiny squares. To give you an idea of how many such squares are used, do the following. Times right-click anywhere on your computer desktop, minimize all windows before you do this, and select Properties from the pop-up menu. Times select the Settings tab. Times observe the numbers in the section titled Screen Resolution. You will see a number such as 1024 x 768 or 1280 x 1024 or 800 x 600 in older computers. What does this mean? The number 1024 x 768 means that your screen is divided into 78642 squares, the product of 1024 verticals and 768 horizontals. Each of these small squares is called a pixel, meaning picture element. So each pixel can be considered the smallest unit of an image. Each pixel carries information about the color and opacity of a particular part of the image. Together, all the pixels arranged in a rectangular grid help generate the graphic, which we see on the monitor. See figure 11.4. If the number of such pixels is increased, or alternately, the size of each pixel is reduced and pixels packed together, the image becomes sharper and more detailed. 1.3.1 Vector and raster graphics. The way the computer generates these images leads to two broad categories of graphics, rasters and vectors, which we will consider now. Television and computer screens are of different kinds. The most common being the cathode ray tube. Increasingly, these are being replaced by LCD and LED displays. In order to display an image, the cathode ray tube, or CRT, would scan the ray across the screen, move one step down and scan the screen again, rapidly covering the entire screen. See figure 11.5. These scan lines were referred to as rasters. The computer broke the image into thousands of pixels, lined them up in the sequence in which the monitor scanned the screen, and using this principle, the CRT displayed them in that order. What information should each of these pixels contain? Obviously, information about the color to be displayed as well as information about its opacity. Without this, the image would appear flat. This process of converting an image into a sequence of pixels is referred to as rasterization, and the image so generated called a raster image. Remember that the computer actually stores numbers made up of zeros and ones. So each pixel is actually a series of numbers representing the colors and opacity. Each number is a bit, and a pixel, therefore, is a map of that series of numbers. A raster image is therefore also referred to as a bitmap. Yet another process by which computers understand images is by breaking down the image into lines and curves related to each other by mathematical equations. We refer to these as vector images. For our purpose, it suffices to know that bitmaps or raster graphics are commonly used to represent photographs, and vectors are preferred where line drawings are used. While both types can be used for all kinds of images, they lead to very different file sizes, and depending on the purpose, the choice becomes obvious. One other major difference between these two types appear when you scale the image, increase or decrease its size. While a vector graphic retains its quality, the raster image breaks down into small squares, losing all its detail. 1.3.2 Comparison of file formats. Using either rasters or vectors, computer graphics software generate and save graphics in a variety of file formats. Each of these formats have been evolved with a specific kind of output in mind. We will examine a few of the commonly used formats and compare their characteristics. If you are familiar with the naming of computer files, you will know that the file extension, the latter part of a file name, e.g. .bmp, .jpg, is the easiest way of recognizing the file format. Each such file extension represents a set of rules governing the encoding and decoding of information. The commonly used raster or bitmap graphic file formats are BMP, .gif, .jpg, .png, .tiff, .taga. Commonly used vector graphic file formats are .svg and .pct. Most computer graphic software use their own special file formats, allowing them to retain more information. For instance, .cdr is the vector graphic format used by CorelDRAW registered trademark symbol, while .pst is the raster format used by Adobe Photoshop registered trademark symbol. For the purpose of this section, we will use the free and open source software GIMP. You could also use any other image editing software like Adobe's Photoshop registered trademark symbol, Corel's PhotoPaint registered trademark symbol, etc. Start with a graphic of your choice. You could start with a photograph or a line drawing, a map or a graph. If the graphic was already on your computer, Note down the file, format and the file size. Open the file in the image editing software. Save a copy of this file. Use Save As or Save a Copy. In the option available for selection of file format, choose GIF.gif. Save the file, see figure 11.7. Repeat this process saving the file as JPG.jpg, BMP.bmp, and PNG.png. Now you have 4 copies of the same file. What differences do you expect between each of these files? Open the folder in a new window and switch to Details view. Observe the column where file sizes are listed. What differences do you observe? Remember, you have 4 different files containing the same graphic. Which format gives you the smallest file size? Which format gives the largest file size? Open all the 4 files in your image editing software and place them side by side. Do they look alike? Are they different? How? You will also observe there are differences in the quality of the image. Use the zoom tool to expand each of these images, say to 400%. What do you observe? Each image format has been specifically designed to meet particular requirements. For instance, GIF or Graphics Interchange format has been designed for web-based graphics. It reduces the file size by using a color palette that contains a limited number of colors. It can handle a maximum of 256 colors. Typically, the GIF format is used for small graphic elements like logos, decorated text, or small animations where the number of colors and variations in shades are minimum. If the image you chose is a photograph with a variety of shades, you will notice that the GIF format loses a lot of information. The GIF format can store a sequence of images and play them out as an animation. The JPEG, Joint Photographic Experts Group, or JPG format also compresses files, making them small. But it loses information while compressing. We refer to this as a lossy compression. This format is preferred for saving photographs as it provides a range of saving options to balance the compression of the image size compared to image quality. If you zoom into a JPG image, you will notice the losses in information. Surprisingly, each time you save a file as JPG, it is recompressed, losing more detail. So it is best to keep the original image and make a fresh JPG each time. Overall, if you want to compress a continuous tone image, JPEG is the way to go. It is not ideal for saving line drawings, high contrast pictures. The BMP, otherwise known as Windows Bitmap, is a file format specific to Windows. BMP is actually the native file format for Microsoft registered trademark symbol, Paint. This format supports files containing up to 16 million colors. It also saves your documents using RLE, run length encoding, which is a lossless compression. What does that mean? Basically, when you save your file using a lossless format, it takes the file and condenses the information so that it takes up less disk space while retaining all of the image data. Notice that this format should have yielded the largest file size, PNG, pronounced as PNG. Portable network graphics files are also designed for the web. They can work with up to 16 million colors. This format supports RGB, indexed color, and grayscale imagery. It even gets rid of those little artifacts associated with JPEGs. Some of the older browsers may require a plugin to display .png files correctly. 11.4 Motion graphics and animation. Animation is a technique of displaying a collection of images in a sequence so as to simulate a moving scene. In fact, cinema itself uses this technique. If you happen to physically view a portion of a film reel, you will notice that each frame is a snapshot of a particular instant. And every subsequent frame is similarly a snapshot of the event a little later than the preceding frame and a little before the succeeding frame. All of your favorite cartoons are made this way. 1.4.1 Animation using computer software. Computer software specifically designed to aid such animation have the ability to combine and playback such image sequences. But remember that the software itself can do very little. The visualization and generation of the images will have to be done by you. Some software have the capability to tween, that is to generate the in-between images when you define the start and end points. But for this to happen, the software should be able to compute the sequence of changes. Generally, physically moving an object across the screen, of growing it, or changing its color or a combination of these can be easily achieved mathematically. Some very sophisticated modeling and animation effects are achieved using such software. In fact, animation has grown into a very large industry worldwide and is in great demand, particularly for the film and advertising industry. For our purposes, motion graphics and animation would have two purposes. 1. To use effects aimed at highlighting information, and to 2. Communicate concepts involving changes in space and time. Let us consider a few typical examples and the techniques of achieving this. Slides shows are a common technique of making presentations. Many of you would be familiar with Microsoft PowerPoint registered trademark symbol. In fact, every Office suite of software consists of a presentation application. Two kinds of animation effects are used here. 1. Where elements on a slide move, perhaps you have a set of bulleted points you wish to reveal one at a time as your lecture progresses. Such effects can be used for progressively labeling a diagram, highlighting some part of the slide. Say image or text, by changing its font, color or moving it, or for actually plotting a graph as you describe the changes. 2. When you move from one slide to another, the previous slide gets replaced by the current slide through an effect. We refer to this as a transition. These transitions, of course, may not have any educational importance and is mainly used as a decorative eye-catcher, making an elaborate visual communication of a process, say how a petrol engine functions, would require very elaborate graphics and animation. This would not only require detailed drawing tools but also tools to animate different parts of the object and combine them together on a timeline. 1. Very commonly used software application for such animation is Adobe Flash registered trademark symbol. This software is a vector graphics application and can be used to develop very sophisticated multi-layer drawings. It also has a timeline on which you assemble the scenes into a complete movie, supporting it with different kinds of effects and transitions. You can also associate the scenes with an audio recording, say music or a commentary. The output could be in the form of a GIF animation, an image sequence, a movie file, .avi, or a shockwave file, .swf. Recent versions of Flash also export to formats suitable for playing movies over the internet. The animation so produced can run independently and can also have interactions built into it. This latter feature is particularly suitable for making interactive multimedia packages. There are, of course, a large number of software applications used for 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional models and animations. Some of these are very sophisticated and are even used to make digital effects for movies. 1.4.2 GIF animation. As we mentioned earlier, the GIF format is capable of playing out a sequence of images one after another in a pre-specified speed. This allows us to depict transitions, say a rotating logo, an animated border or line, or a slideshow, given the limitations of the file format itself, this feature is no more used extensively. Most graphic software like GIMP, Adobe ImageReady, Corel, PhotoPaint allow you to save a sequence of images as an animated GIF file. 11.5 Color Theory. Color is among the most fascinating aspects of nature, and it has been humankind's endeavor not only to understand it, but also to learn to mimic it in their works. The human eye is equipped with two kinds of sensors, one which recognizes brightness and the other which senses color. It would be interesting to note that not all animals are equipped with this capability. When we recognize something as colored, let us say, green leaves, we are simultaneously recognizing a number of things. Not all leaves look the same color. So there is something about the greenness of it. The same leaf would look different in broad daylight as compared to dawn or dusk, when lit up, or when in the shade. If the rising or setting sun glow red, the leaf would look different too. The color of the light also has an effect on what our eyes perceive through the ages, and particularly after Isaac Newton established that white light is composed of 7 distinct colors and invented the color wheel. A large number of people have studied color and tried to present theories about how colors are generated and perceived. While the issue is not clinched, there is still no final acceptable theory of colors. A variety of factors affecting color have been identified, studied, and understood. For the purpose of our unit, it is not so important to understand the theory, but to explore some of the factors in order to create the best possible graphic for the given medium, print or non-print. As we mentioned earlier, there can be different pigments of slightly differing shades of the same color. There can be many colors which go under a broad class called green. We also mentioned that the same shade of green would appear different under differently colored light. In fact, there are two broad categories of coloring material: paints and light. They behave differently too, as we will find out shortly. Color theory recognizes the existence of primary colors which cannot be generated from other colors, and secondary colors which can be generated by mixing different primary colors. While red, green and blue, RGB, are considered primary colors of light, magenta, yellow and cyan are considered primary colors for paint. They are also known as additive primaries and subtractive primaries respectively. Look at the figure below, figure 11.9, showing mixing of primary colors that result in the secondary colors. Notice that when the three primaries for light are combined, it results in white, and the three primaries of paint together yield black. Different combinations of particular primary and secondary colors yield other tertiary colors. But this still doesn't exhaust the range of colors we perceive. What happens when you mix white and black? What happens when you mix white or black with a given color? A pure color mixed with white is called a tint. A pure color mixed with gray is called a tone. A pure color mixed with black is called a shade. Imagine an equilateral triangle in which you have placed black at one of the vertices, white at another, and a particular color at the third vertex. Further, imagine a gradation of colors between the vertices. For instance, if you use the Change Foreground Background color palette in GIMP and opt for the color wheel, figure 11.10, you can generate all the tints, tones and shades of that color. Try this out, selecting different colors from the outside wheel in your computer. When we work with computer graphics using software like GIMP, we have access to an enormous range of colors because of its ability to modify each of the factors minutely. The limiting factor is indeed the ability of our eyes to distinguish them as separate colors. Many colors have names. For example, you have a ruby red, a topaz green, or a Prussian blue. Wikipedia, http://www.wikipedia.org, has a comprehensive write-up on colors and their names. But obviously all the shades, tints and tones of a color cannot be named. So computer software use a code called the hexadecimal code, 16 possible numbers 1 to 9, 0, and AF. This code represents each primary color by a 2-digit code, thereby representing 16 times 16 equals 256 possible shades. So you have the possibility of 256 x to 56 times to 56, which is 16,777,216 colors. The hexadecimal code or the hex code for pure red is FF0000. Red is equal to full to 56, green is equal to 0 and blue is equal to 0. Pure green would be 00 FF00 and pure blue would be 0000 FF. Black would be 000000 and white FFFFFF. 11.6 Graphic Design Tools. In this section, we will explore some common and free graphic design tools. While this cannot be a comprehensive tutorial on these tools, it will help you learn yourself to create simple graphics with them. Like with any software, the more you practice, the more familiar you will be with various capabilities of these tools. 1.6.1 OpenOffice.org Draw and Impress. OpenOffice.org, commonly known as OpenOffice, is a suite of Office applications, including a word processor, writer, a spreadsheet application, calc, a mathematics equation editor, math, a drawing application, draw, a presentation tool, impress, dot, and a database application, base. Together, they form a powerful set of applications. The special feature of this suite is that it is a free and open source software and is tightly integrated, allowing the features of the separate applications to be used in each other. In the following paragraphs, we will look at the features of two of these applications, viz. Draw and Impress. Download and install OpenOffice.org. This suite is available for Windows as well as Linux operating systems. Most Linux distributions will automatically install OpenOffice.org. Open the application OpenOffice.org Draw. Before we actually use it, let us briefly look at the features of this application. Times OpenOffice.org Draw lets you create simple and complex drawings and export them. Times Draw allows insertion of tables, charts, formulas, and other items created in OpenOffice.org programs into your drawings. Times Draw creates vector graphics using lines and curves defined by mathematical vectors. Times you can create simple 3D objects such as cubes, spheres, and cylinders in Draw and even modify the light source of the objects. Grids and guides provide a visual cue to help you align objects in your drawing. Times you can connect objects in Draw with connectors to show the relationship between objects. This is useful for creating organization, charts, and technical diagrams. Times technical diagrams often show the dimensions of objects in the drawing. In OpenOffice.org Draw, you can use dimension lines to calculate and display linear dimensions. Times Draw includes a gallery containing images, animations, sounds, and other items that you can insert and use in your drawings as well as other OpenOffice.org programs. Times Draw can export to many common graphic file formats such as BMP, GIF, JPG, and PNG. Let us create a simple process diagram in Draw depicting the flow of energy in a typical food chain. Notice the drawing toolbar displayed at the bottom of the application window. If this is not visible, go to View, Toolbars and select Drawing. Select any shape, the rectangle, ellipse, or from the Basic Shapes tools. You will observe a colored shape on your page. You can change the color by selecting a color of your choice from the Area Style Filling option in the Line and Filling toolbar. Repeat this process to create 4 separate shapes. Now arrange them on the page. When you click on any shape, handles appear which allow you to resize them. Clicking inside the shape shows a cursor with 4 arrows pointing in 4 directions. You can now drag the shape to any place on the page. When selected, you can delete a shape too by pressing the delete button on your keyboard. A right click will reveal a number of other options which you use to modify or reorganize your drawing. Select the text tool on the drawing toolbar. Click inside a shape. Do you observe a text box with a blinking cursor? Type a label to show meaning. Repeat this process with each of your shapes. Select lines and arrows or connectors. Draw arrows or connectors to join the shapes according to the process flow. Your diagram is complete. But notice, if you move any of your shapes, connectors or text boxes, the drawing will be disturbed. To ensure they behave as a single diagram, you need to group them. Select all the elements. You can do this by pressing Ctrl+A, click dragging your mouse over the entire page or selecting Edit, select all. Observe the handles now define a rectangle covering all the elements. Right-click inside this region and select Group from the options. Test it by dragging any of the elements. Do all the elements move together? You can ungroup them anytime. You may also enter the group and exit it in order to modify any element. Once grouped, you can even copy the process diagram and paste it into any other application as if it was a single object. Save your file. We have explored only one small feature of Draw. Play around with its various features and options, making different drawings to find out how powerful this application is. Now we will explore OpenOffice.org Impress. This application allows you to make slideshows. As before, let us look at the features list before we proceed to make a presentation. OpenOffice.org Impress lets you create professional slideshows that can include charts, drawing objects, text, multimedia, and a variety of other items. Many of the tools for creating vector graphics in Draw are available in Impress. Impress provides you with templates to create professional-looking slides. You can also assign a number of dynamic effects to your slides, including animation and transition effects. Impress also lets you rehearse the timing of your slideshow. OpenOffice.org Impress gives you the choice of running a slideshow automatically or manually. You can publish your slides on screen, as handouts, or as HTML documents. We will make a simple 4-slide slideshow. Each of our slides will contain a heading and a graphic. We will then insert transitions between slides and finally play it out as a slideshow. Open Impress in OpenOffice.org. Observe the panels on both sides of the work area. The left panel will show the 4 slides we will create. The right panel allows us to select a master design, a layout for the content on our slide, animations for the content, and slide transitions. Let us select a layout, say with a title and a graphic. As soon as you select it, the slide in the work area acquires the layout. Click on the title bar and type in your title. Now double-click on the icon in the graphics box. You will see a set of options for inserting a spreadsheet, chart, drawing, formula, or text. If you want more options, select Further Objects and click OK. You will be shown a further set of options, which includes literally anything that can be inserted, including a video clip or a sound file. Let us select a bitmap image by clicking on Insert Picture from File. To insert the next slide, go to Insert Slide. A new slide with the same template appears on the screen. You will also see both the slides in the left panel. Alternately, you can also choose Insert Duplicate Slide. In this case, a copy of your slide is generated. Repeat this process 2 more times, generating 4 slides in all. type in the titles in each of the slides. You may insert any of the objects we mentioned above: a drawing, a chart, a spreadsheet, or even a piece of text. Save your file. Now we will apply transitions and convert the set of slides into a slideshow. Transition is the effect which plays when a slide is displayed. For example, a wipe. The second slide wipes out the first slide. Go to Slideshow, Slide, Transition. Observe the new slide transition panel on the right with various options for the transition effects, figure 11.17. You may choose to apply the same transition to all slides or different ones to different slides, although the latter would be distracting. You can also define when and how the slide transits. Preview the effect you used. Once completed, you may run the slideshow to preview your work. Go to Slideshow, Slideshow. There are a variety of slide layouts, transitions, animation effects, colors, and textures that you can play around to make your slideshow interesting. You may also like to publish your slideshow on the web, or as a PDF, document, or generate handouts. Do spend time exploring the various options till you become familiar with the different tools offered by the application. 1.6.2 MS Paint, owing to the fact that this is a standard component of the Windows operating system, most computer users have been introduced to it. In fact, many computer training programs use MS Paint as a means to teach mouse control. This software application has a limited but useful set of functions. We will explore a few of them and suggest that you try out the various features. As its name suggests, MS Paint is a painting software. So what you are presented with are a canvas, a color palette, brushes, a few text and shape tools. When you start this application, go to Start, Programs, Accessories, Paint. You begin with a blank canvas. You may begin with the selection tool and define a shape. Paint within it or fill it. You may begin with a brush or pen. Notice an options palette opens out below, giving you choices for brushes. You may also begin with predefined shapes, rectangles, ovals and polygons. Notice the color palette at the bottom. If you are not happy about the color choice, go to Colors, Edit, Colors. If you click on Define Custom Colors, you will have a full choice of colors. Remember, we said MS Paint provides a canvas. Once you put an object on it, that's it. You cannot select it and move or modify it. You can of course use the undo option, Ctrl-Z, to go back one step. Using the text option along with shapes, you can create quite elaborate graphics. If you prefer the artist's way, you can paint your own picture. The images are saved in Windows native graphic format, .bmp, 1.6.3 GIMP. GIMP stands for New Image Manipulation Program and is released under the GNU General Public License, which makes it a free and open source software, giving you permission to freely use, distribute and even modify, if you know how to. GIMP, as its name suggests, helps you manipulate images. You can start with a blank canvas and generate your own graphic, like you did with MS Paint, or you can open a photograph or a scan image and modify it. For a beginner, the sheer variety of tools and options can be intimidating. In fact, most software applications, even your word processor, have thousands of tools and options. Of these, you use only a few to begin with. As you become more and more familiar and the tasks you attempt become more complicated, you will begin to use more and more tools and options. In order to become familiar with the GIMP interface, we will attempt to make a poster. Let us identify the tasks we will have to undertake, times define the size of the poster, times work out a rough design, including the background image, text, borders, etc., times implement the design in GIMP, times ready the image for printing, while the printed posters we see are huge, one does not start off the design process with such a large canvas. We instead use a very high density DPI image, which finally is scaled up to the size desired without loss of quality. This is because every computer program needs memory, hard disk space, and graphics processing capability, and the larger the canvas size, more would be its requirement. Typically, very high resolution graphics, like say a photograph in a glossy magazine, is printed in 300 dpi or higher. Of course, that depends on the size of the canvas and the type of image information. A colored rectangular band, for instance, has no details and DPI hardly matters here, while a close-up of a very colorful bird or a jungle scene is likely to have far more color variation and would require a very high image density. Let us define the size of our poster. Go to File, New. A new window with the title Create New Image opens. You have options for setting the height and width of your image. Notice the pull-down menu with pixels as the option. Pull it down to see other options. You may indicate your image size in pixels, inches, millimeters, etc. See Figure 11.20. This is useful when you wish to make an image for the screen, pixels, or for print, inches, millimeters. For our purpose, let us define a size of 10 inches x 8 inches, a size just less than an A4 page and can be printed on almost all printers. Also notice a button for advanced options. Click to open. Now you can also set the resolution or image density of your image in pixels, inch or millimeter, etc. Set it to 72, the default value. Click OK. You now have a blank canvas to work with. The second task is to freeze up your design. See Figure 11.22, our final image. You can have your own design with your own choice of colors. Now we will take you through the steps generating this final image. In the process, you will explore various features of GIMP. Please note that software applications like GIMP are very complex and learning all its features would be quite time-consuming. Our attempt here would only be to introduce you to a path which will help you explore it on your own. When you work with GIMP-like software, you need to become familiar with the concept of layers, Figure 11.21. Remember, when you worked with MS Paint, if you erased something, all paint you applied on the canvas would be wiped out. This can be inconvenient if you wish to develop a graphic consisting of overlapping regions. For example, you might want a caption placed on a photograph and would like to try out various colors or fonts for the text. Layers allow you to keep different elements separate and modify them independently. It would be like stacking many transparent canvases, one above the other, each containing graphic elements. Using this, you can modify the elements as much as you wish without affecting other elements. You can also apply special effects to particular layers or modify the properties. This gives us enormous flexibility in developing graphics. As you explore GIMP, you will also recognize a number of ways layers can be used in increasing productivity and ease of working. Notice that GIMP opens with a canvas, a toolbox palette, and a third palette, in which layers, channels, paths are listed. GIMP calls them dialogues, as they allow you to suggest options to the software. Click on the layers icon if the layers dialog is not on the top. Notice the buttons at the bottom of the dialog. You can create, delete layers from here. First, let us insert a background image. Go to File, Open and open an image of your choice. Let it be at least as big as your canvas. Remember, you can reduce the size of an image without loss in quality, but the same is not true for increasing it. The image opens in a new window. You may resize the image going to image, scale image and specifying the desired size 10 times 8. Go to select all, and after selecting the image, go to edit, copy and copy your image to the clipboard, the temporary space where Windows stores copied information. Click on the blank canvas we opened earlier. Go to edit, paste as new layer. Notice the image you copied is visible as a new layer. Click on create new layer on the layer dialog. You are asked to specify the size of the layer, allowing you a smaller layer than the original canvas. But, for our purpose, we suggest you change the size to 10 times 8 and the layer fill type as transparency. Using the rectangle select tool from the toolbox, define a rectangular region on the image to function as a backdrop to the title you will be inserting in the next step. Click on the foreground color and change it to a color of your choice. Use the bucket fill tool from the toolbox and fill the selection. Use the opacity setting slider and set the opacity to 30%. Now, you have a colored rectangular backdrop. Use the move tool to position the rectangle at a location of your choice. Now click on the text tool, write your image title. Notice that you can define the font, the letter size and the color of the letters. Click close and you will find a new text layer. You can always edit this text or its properties by double-clicking on the text. Use the move tool to position the text within the rectangle. Let us now add a special effect, say a drop shadow to the text. Go to Filters, Light and Shadow, Drop Shadow. A new window opens up with various options for the shadow. Make your selections and click OK to accept, save the image. Click File, Save. Notice that GIMP assigns the extension .xcf to the file automatically. This format is GIMP's native format and retains the layers information. If you wish to send this image for printing or put it on the web, choose an appropriate file format. Click on Select by File Type to reveal other options in the Save window. We have tried out a simple exercise in GIMP introducing you to some basic ideas of graphics software. Obviously, for a creative individual, there are thousands of options available in the software. Do explore the different tools and options to generate or modify your graphics. 1.6.4 Picasa. Once you have your collection of photographs and graphics, you would like a convenient way of organizing and managing them. There are a number of software applications which help you do so. Picasa from Google is one such free image management tool. What all can it do? Once downloaded and installed, Picasa can look around your hard disk, map it and create albums and collections. It can create slideshows, make a movie from your collection, or even a collage. It can publish your collection to the web. If you have a photograph which needs correction, Picasa also provides some simple tools to do so. Picasa also has a viewer application. When you open an image in this viewer, it is displayed along with a panel of thumbnails of all the images in that folder and a set of tools for zooming, editing, navigating, uploading to the web, rotating, printing, and emailing. You can use the navigation button to go forwards or backwards, one image at a time, or run it as a slideshow. Let us explore some of these features. Make a collection of images or graphics in a folder, say, the My Pictures folder. Open Picasa. You should see your images displayed as thumbnails in the right pane. In the left pane, you will find the folders containing the images listed. If you do not see some of the images on your hard disk displayed here, it is because you have not asked Picasa to look for it. Go to Tools, Folder Manager, and select the folders where you want Picasa to look. You can add description to your images here. Select an image. Right-click on it and select View and Edit. The image is now displayed singly in the right pane. The left pane is replaced by a new one with 3 tabs: Basic Fixes, Tuning and Effects. A number of options for correcting or modifying the image is available. Play around with it. Once you are done, you can click on Back to Library button above the left pane. You can create albums containing select images. Go to File, New Album, and give it a name. Now you can select pictures, right-click on them and add them to your albums. When you wish to publish this album onto a CD or a web album, Picasa will manage this activity for you. Picasa has a large number of options for organizing, managing, editing and publishing your image collections. You may like to explore these tools and become familiar with them. 1.6.5 Digitizing graphics. Till now we have dealt with graphics generated on the computer or photographs already in the digital or electronic form, in the form of a computer file. In this section, we will consider how to import a printed graphic or document into a computer. The process of converting any image into a computer-readable file is referred to as digitization. Nowadays, you have a number of very convenient devices to do this. The simplest of them is to use a web camera and save the image displayed on your screen. You could also use a digital still camera and upload the file from the camera onto the computer. A scanner is a specialized device meant specifically for digitization. The scanner consists of a camera-like device which moves along the printed page, taking a continuous picture of the page, one strip at a time. The software then stitches up these strips into an image of the page. This is why the process is called scanning and the device a scanner. A photocopying machine is incidentally a scanner and printer combined. While scanning is a straightforward way of digitization, it may result in changes in the image and you should know how to correct them. If you use a camera, it is likely that the plane of the camera is not the same as the print you have digitized. This leads to a distortion, one edge smaller than the other, even when the original is a rectangle, which can be corrected using the perspective tool in software like GIMP. Depending on the light conditions, changes in brightness or color can happen. This again can be corrected with appropriate tools in software like GIMP or Picasa. Scanner's settings may be configured to yield an image whose canvas size, image size or image density, DPI, may be different from the original. Depending on the purpose for which you are digitizing it, you may have to reconfigure these settings in the scanner software. For example, if you want the image to be part of a book, which is to be printed, you may need a high-resolution image, whereas if you want it to be part of a website, a lower-resolution image will suffice. You should also be aware of the graphic formats discussed in section 11.3 you wish to work with and suitably convert, usually save as the digital image file. 11.7 Tools for concept mapping. A concept map is a chart depicting the relationships between concepts. It can be used as a way of organizing your thoughts on a topic. At the same time, you could use it to communicate the topic to others. Concept maps have become quite popular with teachers using ICT tools who use this not only for teaching learning but also for evaluation. In our context, we are looking at concept maps as a graphical representation of a subject topic. Also, we are interested in a software tool which will help us make and present a concept map. One such free software is FreeMind, available from http://freemind.sourceforge.net. Download and install it, launch FreeMind and go to File, New. You will be presented with a new canvas with your first node. Click inside to change the text inside. Now you can attach concept nodes to this. Remember, concepts can be at the same level to branches emerging from the main trunk. We call them sibling nodes. The concept can be a subconcept of the previous one, in which case, we call it a child node. So the map will consist of a main parent node, typically the topic itself, and a mesh of sibling and child nodes emerging out from the parent. To attach your next node, go to Insert, New Child Node or New Sibling Node. You can also start a new map with Insert, New Parent Node. There are a number of options for the shape of your nodes, the connectors between them, and the colors of the nodes. This not only helps beautifying your map, but also helps visual categorizing of the concepts. The text inside the nodes can be plain text or hyperlinks. You can also include images. Once you complete your map, the page can be exported out as a web page, a PDF, or an image. You can then project it in your classroom and use the concept map as a teaching learning aid. You can also assign the task of constructing a concept map to students individually or in groups. Observing the process and asking relevant questions can also help evaluate their understanding. Do try out this tool and explore the various possibilities. 11.8 Summary. Some of the important points discussed in this unit are summarized below. Times graphics are being increasingly used to communicate. With the advent of computer software, graphics have evolved into a very powerful and sophisticated means of visual communication. Times a variety of graphic forms are used in instruction, including graphs, maps, diagrams, and charts, times the specific purposes of communication. Effective use of different elements of the particular graphic form and the level of the viewer have a bearing on the impact of the graphic. Times computer graphics software provides too many choices and options. While some of these options are very useful, others could serve a purely cosmetic purpose. Times digital graphics come into broad formats, vectors and rasters. Vector graphics are scalable and are suitable for mathematically definable images like line drawings, graphs, etc. Raster or bitmap graphics are suitable for a wider variety of images. Times different file formats are used to save images in both vector and raster formats. They are interconvertible. Differences in the way they process images. Different formats have different advantages and limitations. File formats like .jpg, .gif, and .png are used for web graphics. .tiff, .bmp, and .taga are used in video and print applications. Times combining progressively changing images and playing them in a sequence results in perception of motion. This technique is used in motion graphics, video, and animation. Times color theory categorizes the range of colors into primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. While primary colors cannot be generated from each other, combining primary colors results in secondary colors. Different combinations of primary and secondary colors result in the complete range of tertiary colors. Times red, green, and blue are the primary colors of light, while cyan, magenta, and yellow are the primary colors of pigments. Colors are further categorized on the basis of their tints, tones and shades or hues, saturation and tonal values. Times computer graphics software use a color wheel or similar devices to enable selection of colors. Colors are identified by a 16-digit code and computer software can distinctly identify 256 shades of each primary color, resulting in 16 million combinations. Times we explored development of graphics using OpenOffice.org Draw, Microsoft Paint, and GIMP. We also studied the development of a slide show using OpenOffice.org Impress and a photo album using Picasa. These software have a large number of features and can be used to develop a variety of graphics for a variety of purposes. Times concept mapping is a convenient device to depict relationships between different concepts and subconcepts. This device can be used quite effectively in teaching and in evaluating. We explored the use of FreeMind to develop and display concept maps. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.